Good evening, everyone. I'm Julia O'Hara with USF Housing and Residential Education. And tonight I'm joined by David Kloiber, Associate Director of Operations and Outreach. Hi, Dave. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Hi, Julia. How are you?
I'm great. And we're excited to have you on the show again, our first show of 2022. And tonight we're going to be talking all about summer and fall spring housing applications, which are open now in the housing portal, and the upcoming room selection process. So I have a list of questions for Dave here, but we'll also be taking questions from you, the viewers. So if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, type your questions in the comments wherever you're watching, and we will answer as many as we can during the broadcast. So let's get started, Dave, and we'll jump right in here. Let's first talk about the room selection rounds, as we're calling them, or dates. So the first one is for current USF students. So whether you're a current resident or if you are a sophomore living off campus, they would have access to room selection at the same time, correct? They would both fall under
Right.
current USF students. So what are those dates for current students?
Sure. Boy, you asked me a question that I actually have to look on my calendar to figure out. And I hope that all of our students are marking their calendars once I give you these dates, because it's really important. But of course, you can always go to the website and get that information as well. So the dates for room selection for our continuing students or our current students is February 21st through February 25th. That's a Monday to a Friday.
Great. So Monday through Friday, February 21st through February 25th, and then room selection closes for a few weeks, and then the fall spring room selection begins for new students, admitted students to the university. And what are those dates?
That begins on Thursday, March 10th, and it will go through the very beginning of the morning on Monday, March 14th. So that'll be basically almost 5 full days for students to select a room that are new to the university.
Okay. And then on Monday, March 14th, after current USF students have had the chance to select their rooms, and then new students have their chance, Monday, March 14th, everyone will have access, correct, to go into room selection?
Yep. So at 9 o'clock, we'll shut down, 9 a.m., I believe, we've scheduled to shut down the new student selection process. And then at 10 o'clock, we'll open it up for everybody.
Okay. And that will go up until June 30th, right?
Correct.
So
right.
March 14th?
With some exceptions. Yes, June 30th.
Okay.
So what you're really talking about is the general selection process. Now we also have some very specific ones that are designed for specific programs. But we only reserve those program beds until approximately June 15th. And so let's say you're an honors student that wants to live in the honors LLC, and you've been admitted to the LLC, you'll actually be able to go in and select an honors room. It's a slightly different process, and I'll show a little bit more information about it later, but that would end on June 15th.
Okay. And then all of that will be on our website too as we go through this process
Definitely.
of all of the different room selection. Now we're going to be talking mostly about fall spring room selection, but I did want to mention summer room selection opening and ending for all students. So I'll give those dates right now, but those are all on our website. Summer A, B, and C. Room selection is from Wednesday, March 16th to Friday, April 29th. And then summer B is Wednesday, March 16th to Wednesday, June 1st. So we don't do that by current and then new students having access to that. That's just if you're a USF student and you've completed your steps to apply for housing or to select your room, then you'll have access to that.
Correct.
So we already have some great questions coming in from the audience, but before we get into those, I do want to go over the very important 5 steps to living on campus. So Dave, can you talk about if you're a current student, what do you need to get done in order to select a room, and if you're a new student, what you need to get done?
So really everything that you need to get done is no different whether you're a current student or a new student. It's just the current students have probably already taken care of some of the steps, so it seems like there are less steps. But you need to, of course, apply. We don't know you want a room unless you actually complete your application. Now, when you complete your application, then you're assessed a $50 application fee for the housing application, and you'll need to make that application fee payment. And that fee will arrive in your account the next business day. And so you do want to be patient. You can't just apply and then automatically go in there and try to pay your fee, because it won't be there yet on Oasis. In addition, you need to ensure that your immunizations are clear, the ones that are required for housing, and those are your hepatitis B, your meningitis vaccine, and if you're an international or a student that is not living in the continental U.S., I think that's how they manage it. The TB screening needs to be completed. And so that's what we consider when we say you're not complete for housing in terms of immunization or screening. Now, for the meningitis and hepatitis B, you don't actually have to show proof. You can also say, you know what, I don't want to show proof, or I've got it, but I can't find it. I just want to decline it. Or you just don't want to get a vaccine, and so you can decline it. And so you would do that in Oasis, and you'd go to the health section, and then you can choose to decline those if you wish. But of course, we always encourage all of our students to try to get all your vaccines that you can, because it's only going to help protect you. And then finally, orientation. So of course, all of our current students who are currently attending classes here have already done orientation. It's not that it's not required for a continuing student, it's just that they've already done it. But our new students would then also have to register for orientation. You can select a room before you attend orientation, but you do have to register for orientation. And registration for orientation does not open up until March.
And do we have that date that we can share? Because we do have a question from the audience. Tammy is asking, they just have to register for orientation. That's their last step that is pending. And they just want to make sure that it's not going to overlap. But we are in communication. If we don't have the date that's up on the orientation website yet, that's fine. But we do talk to orientation and just make sure that they're going to open up registration before we begin room selection. We make sure that we have that communication and confirm that.
So I went to another screen, and I'm taking a look and bringing up the orientation section of USF, and let's see if I can find out what that date is.
I think that they published it on their front page of the orientation website the last time I checked.
Okay, for some reason there it comes. All right, now my search results are coming in. Orientation about us. Let's just go back to office orientation. And so under dates to remember, it says right here, right on their main page, the go live date for summer and fall reservations for 2022 is March 8th.
March 8th.
The exact time of that day, I have no idea. It just says that's today. So if you want more information, definitely reach out for orientation, and I'm sure they're going to be blasting social media and sending you notifications about preparing yourself to register for orientation.
Yep, so that's great to know. So March 8th, register for orientation. That's your last check on the checklist for 5 steps to living on campus, and then you will be ready for room selection. So if you are ready for room selection, you have all of those things done, how will you know when you have access into the housing portal for room selection? Do you want to go through that process, how students are communicated
to? We will be emailing all of our students what their selection date and time is. So, we can't have all 4,000 or 5,000 students try to log in at once and try to select a room. The system will not be able to handle it. And so we will communicate out via email what your selection date and, I should say, your start date and time are. So once your start date and time happens, you can select it any time thereafter. So, maybe you're a continuing student and you're going to get your start date is the 21st at 10 a.m. And you talk to your friend and their start date is actually the 23rd at 11 a.m. Um, we have some criteria that we look at based on when you applied, when you completed your application payment, and some other factors that we look at and that's how we rank students in order. But definitely the earlier that you applied, the earlier you paid your application fee, the earlier you're going to be in your selection group.
So that's a great segue to the question that we have from Kiera, saying, I finished the housing application and paid the fee, but I can't submit the immunization records yet. Am I already in line for the selection, or is that only after I submit my immunization?
You're in line. However, if you don't have those submitted before it's time to select your room, you won't be able to. And so regardless of whether or not you're in line, you're going to get virtually pulled out of that line because you're not ready. Same thing will happen if you don't register for orientation. You get pulled out of line because you're not ready.
Okay, so we have a lot of questions coming in, so I'm going to take a break from my list and we're going to jump into some questions from the viewers. So Walter asked, the housing application was deducted from our acceptance deposit. Is that sufficient to secure a spot in the housing queue?
Yes, it is. The important thing to note is that if later on you decide USF, and I know, Walter, you're not going to do this, but if later on you decide USF is not where you're going to end up going to school, that $200 admissions deposit will get pulled back out because it's non-refundable. And then whatever you had was paid by that admissions deposit will then be owed again. So I do want to caution you, it's not a bad idea to just pay that fee anyway, the $50. You don't have to, but if you decide later on you're not going to matriculate and come to USF, you may end up owing that $50 again. Because in theory, it wasn't paid because that $200 deposit gets pulled away. That's something that's been happening in the last year, and I want to make sure I'm telling students about that.
And I'm going to stick to the specific questions for the housing application process, the 5 steps. So I'm going to go through the list, and we'll get to your questions if we can. All of them. We have a lot coming in, but I'm going to stick to that theme right now since we're on that. So Allison asked, my daughter filled out her housing application on November 12th, but just yesterday realized she had not paid the housing application fee. Will this affect her place in line for housing? So going back to what you were saying, that it's the fee being paid that does place you in line.
Correct.
So,
and if you think about it, the application's one thing, but the commitment of money is that's what we look at first. And then we look at, well, if we have 50 people that committed on the same day, well, who did their application first? That's going to be the next factor that we look at in order to put them in an order.
Okay. And Steve, we asked how are freshmen notified on when their room selection time slot is. We did talk about that earlier, but just to stress, make sure that your student is checking their USF email regularly, because that is going to be where all of the official communication from housing comes to. And then Lisa is asking, losing my place here. Lisa asks, my daughter has been accepted to USF for fall 2022. She's still deciding which school she will attend, but USF is a top choice. Can she put in a housing deposit to secure a priority spot before she makes her formal decision?
That's a great question. We encourage all of our students and, of course, their parents and guardians to read the cancellation portion of the housing agreement. But in a nutshell, the answer is yes, you can. But any student that is not going to come to USF, so they're not going to be registered for the semesters that they have signed up for housing. And what I mean by signed up, not just done the application, but You can cancel your application at any time as long as you have not assigned yourself a room. Once you assign yourself a room, that's when you need to fall within what we call our cancellation criteria that are found in section 4.2 of the housing agreement. For a student who decides, well, I picked the room I want just in case I come, and I decided to go somewhere else. You can still cancel because you're not coming to USF. You're not going to be a registered student. But then what happens is, based on the time that you cancel, would determine whether or not there is or is not a cancellation fee. Really important. If you know you're coming to USF, but you're not sure you want to live on campus, do not select a room. Because once you select a room and you know you're still coming here, then you need to fall within that criteria. So I changed my mind, I want to live at home, or I changed my mind, I want to live off campus. They do not satisfy the criteria. So you want to have at least some of those decisions made before you select your room. But in the case from what you just described with that question, yes, you could cancel if you decide not to come to USF.
Right. And so that moves us also to answering a question that both Jessica and Steve asked about the $200 admission fee. So do you need to pay the $200 admission fee as a new student in order to be a part of room selection? Or if you complete the 5 steps to housing, will that be fine? But the $200 admission fee is needed to be paid in order to register for orientation. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So in a nutshell, yes, you would.
If you're going to register for orientation on March 8th, you'll need to have submitted that $200, which will then allow you to select your room when it's time for room selection.
Correct.
Okay, and then we have a couple of questions about where to find the application fee.
Okay,
the housing
that would
application fee.
Sure, you actually find that on Oasis. Unfortunately, I don't have any screenshots of that, but I do believe we have a wonderful video right on our website about how to pay your application fee or how to pay your housing fees.
Yeah, we can drop that link in the
I would encourage you to definitely check for that.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll make sure that we respond with the instructions on how to pay that. And then another, on that note, how do I submit immunization records is another question.
So this year, with some changes in My Bulls Path, you have now some options on how to submit your records. You can actually upload them through a link in My Bulls Path. You can go to the Student Health Services website and use the link that they have on the website, or Student Health is open, so you can actually bring them in if you want to, if you're local enough or you're going to be on campus. But you don't want to wait too long in order to hand those in, because you don't want to miss your start time for room selection. And so don't wait till orientation is my biggest thing.
Right.
Because by orientation, there may not be a room left for you to select.
And Ingrid's asking, do immunizations need to be converted to Florida, or can they be from your home state? Do you know the answer to that question, or would that be a Student Health Services?
No, they can. I don't think there is a particular form that you have to use. You need to show proof of your immunization. So if you get an immunization document from your physician or your school in the state that you're in, as long as it is stamped and signed by an official that is providing the document for you and has all the information that is needed, that should be sufficient for student health. But I always encourage you that if you've got a very specific question like that, please reach out to student health. They'll be able to assist you better.
And Monica's asking, my son deferred his spring acceptance to summer. He completed that orientation. Oasis is locked, so he can't apply for housing. Who should we call?
Oasis is locked? So that sounds like a net ID is locked.
Mm-hmm, it would be the housing portal that would be.
Yeah, if you can't get into the housing portal, then that sounds like there's an issue with your net ID. And so I would start by reaching, if you're having issues logging in with your net ID, there should be a link on that error page that helps you get in touch with IT.
Okay. So we have a lot of questions about room selection specifics, roommate groups, which I know we're going to get into. So I think that the next thing that we should talk about is roommate groups. Let's go over that and what that is and the specifics of that. And I think that that'll answer a lot of these questions that we're getting. And then we can dive into a screen share of the housing portal and the room selection process, because that also will answer a lot of these questions.
Okay. Do you want me to just describe it, or do you want to ask any particular questions about it?
Well, I guess that the first thing I would ask about a roommate group is how do you do one and what is it? And then I think that a big question that's coming up is if somebody has an earlier time, can they be the one to select the room on behalf of the group, which is absolutely true. So if you want to give an overview, that would be great.
So we understand, and I've been doing this for, a long time. Longer than probably all of our incoming students, and many of our graduating students have been alive. But we know that roommate pairings are best when they're created by the people who are roommates. So we have this process called roommate groups that's been developed by the folks who developed the software to allow students to create or form a group whereby one person in that group can go in and select for all those in the group. The only limitation is they cannot select multiple units. So let's say we do cap our number of roommates in a possible group at the leader and 4 more, because the biggest unit that we have on campus is an apartment in Kosov that holds 5 people. So the leader plus 4 more is 5. And so let's say you wanted to have, you have yourself and 9 friends, you all want to live on the same floor. Well, then you're going to have to break it up into multiple groups that would fit in the appropriate number of units on a floor. Now, what we call a unit is either an apartment, a suite, or a traditional room. And so a traditional room can have 1 to 3 people, and a suite can have anywhere from 1 to 4 people, and an apartment can have anywhere from 2 to 5 people. And so that's how we define a unit. And so you'll be able to, an individual can go and start a group by going into the housing portal, and I'll do a demo in a moment or so. They would go in, they would start by inviting people to join. The important thing is that you cannot start a group until you have everything completed, with the exception of orientation, because I recognize that if our incoming students have to wait to have their orientation ready before they can start forming groups, and orientation registration opens up on March 8th, and new student assignments begin new student room selection begins on March 10th, it's not appropriate to give you only 2 days to create your roommate group. And so what we are allowing you to do, starting today, is create a roommate group even though you have not completed your orientation requirement. And so you can invite people who are also in that same stage of application completion. And all you'll need is their name, their first name, last name, or their university ID number. Now, if you have a friend, let's say, whose name is Michael Smith, get their university ID number, because there could be a lot of Michael Smiths in the system, because Smith is obviously a very common last name and Michael is a fairly common first name.
Right. So I did see a question here, I'm looking for it now, but about a transfer student wanting to room with, okay, here's the question from Joanna. Can you clarify if a transfer student can be part of a roommate group that has returning students who will have the early room selection dates?
Yes, I can. Now, that'll be a process that we will need your help to inform us that you're part of that group, because what we'll do is we'll put a temporary yes on your orientation registration to make sure that your assignment can be created in that earlier time, because as you may have heard earlier in the program, continuing student or that first phase of room selection, are we calling it phases now? I can't
Round is
remember.
what I've been calling them.
That first round of room selection, which is for our continuing or our current students at USF, is a few weeks before registration for orientation begins, but we don't want to stop your ability to live with students who are already here. And so we will mark your application or your profile orientation complete in order to allow you to be assigned a room. So yes, you can participate, but we'll need you to help identify yourself so that we can make that change. But then we'll be verifying later on in the summer that you did indeed register for orientation.
And Dave, what are the steps that you need to complete before you can create a roommate group? Did you already go over that when I was reviewing these questions?
I did.
Okay, just
So
making sure.
Everything is complete with the exception of orientation. So you've applied, you've paid your $50 application fee, your immunizations are complete, at least for housing. And remember, we don't require your academic history, or not your academic, your health history form, and we don't require your MMR for housing. That's required for admission to the university, or for registration for classes. And if you don't do those, eventually you won't be registered. And if you're not registered, you can't live on campus. So eventually that does affect housing, but we don't need those up front in order to get you reserved for housing.
Okay. So Karen's asking a question about roommate groups. If a potential roommate starts in summer, but I do not, I can still room. If they start in the fall, can they still room with them in the fall?
Definitely.
So they
That's
would just
why our
complete the
processes
roommate
are
group.
separate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They would do
So
the roommate group for the fall.
You may have heard from the description of the dates that we actually do fall spring room selection first, before we do summer. They are completely different processes, and moreover, they are completely different applications.
And do all of the people in a roommate group have to have paid their housing deposit and filled out their housing application in order for the roommate to select on their behalf?
Yes, remember, you can't even add them to the group unless they have completed the 3 steps out of the 4. And so the application fee, and the immunizations,
which can all be done right now. So there would be no reason to delay all of that.
Right.
And they can do that now, create a roommate group at this time, correct?
Yep, it was opened up earlier today, yes, once I made sure it was working.
All right. So do we want to jump in there and give a demo of the roommate group process?
We can do that.
And while you're setting that up, what I will do is put a plug for the Class of 2026 Facebook group. There are some questions here about meeting potential roommates before you pick your hall. And we do have an official class of USF Class of 2026 that is on Facebook, that you have to be a admitted student to the university to be a part of that group. So a lot of people go in there and introduce themselves, talk about what they're planning on majoring in, what their interests are, and that's a great place to meet potential roommates on that space. And so we'll drop a link in the comments with that information.
So here's my screen, and everybody can see it, I hope.
I can see it. I think we're good.
There are a bunch of different ways to get into the housing portal. You can go from My Bulls Path. You can go from a variety of different links that some people may send you. You might be able to just click the link that we send you in an email. But I like to go to the housing website. And so here's our website, and you scroll down to housing portal. Click that link. I'm going to make the screen a little bit bigger just to make it easier for all of you to read it. We'll go a little bit larger. There we go. No, a little bit smaller. Okay. Now this is a change for those who are joining us who are continuing students. When you log into the housing portal now, because we're moving to one USF, we made it possible for you to go from campus to campus to campus in our housing portal. So St. Pete does offer housing. Sarasota's Manatee does not offer housing right now, but we didn't want to leave them out because they are part of our one USF. And so if you click there, it's just going to say, thanks for looking, but we don't have housing yet, but please look at St. Pete or Tampa. And so I'm going to go into Tampa. And here we are. You'll see that the assign button is here. It only shows up right now for me. So if you log in real quick to find it, you're not going to find it. So don't be discouraged if you don't see assign. But to start with, to do a roommate group, you go to My Account, go to Roommate Group Manager, and right now we're talking about Fall 22 and Spring 2023 roommate groups. And we will be adding additional groups for summer.
Great. Okay. I know that will be a question. So when do you think the summer roommate
Probably
group?
in the next week or so.
Okay.
I've just got to figure out exactly how we want to approach summer. What we may do is a first half of summer roommate group, which would be summer A, B, and C, because they all live in one building, and then a summer B only roommate group. And then our SSS and our ACE program, they are assigned a little differently for summer based on their fall assignment, and so they don't go through a room selection for the summer.
Right. And that's been some of the questions too on that. So.
And we can address that more when we get to the demo about the actual selection process.
Perfect.
And I'm going to try not to look at you who's on this screen, so I can look at the screen right in front of me. Okay, so I'm going to click on that.
Just your screen showing right now, so you're good.
Okay. And so here we have it. It's got all the instructions on what is a group, how to create a group, how do you join a group. So we encourage you to read all this information. If you're a veteran, you probably know you could just scroll down to the bottom and take care of business. So talks about creating a group, joining a group, leaving a group. Everybody who interacts with a group will be on this page. There is no different page if you're a leader as compared to a member of a group.
And Dave, can your roommate be older or an upperclassman?
Sure can.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
So here's some common questions, and here I'm highlighting right here, accept orientation registration. Again, accept.
And that's different for this year. So.
Yeah, this is all new, which is why I highlighted it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in this particular one, will work for a couple of different application types, for the student housing application and the ACE student housing application. And the reason we do that is because ACE students can live anywhere they want in the fall and spring. We encourage them to live in their cohort, but they don't have to. Mm-hmm. And so they're going to live together as a cohort in the summer, but in the fall, spring, maybe they don't want to live in Poplar for fall and spring. They want to live in an apartment with their friend. And ACE is not in the apartment, so they would do general room selection for that. And that's why they're able to form a roommate group with people that are not just part of the ACE program.
And Dave, can you start the roommate group and add additional people later on, but before
yes,
the room selection starts? Okay.
Matter of fact, I'm going to demonstrate that right now. So here we're at the bottom, and it says here's your group. So I'm the leader of my group. It would be really weird if I pressed leave, but I guess I could leave a group. If I formed a group and then I left the group, the whole group disappears. Everybody in the group gets dropped out because the leader no longer wants to be the leader. It doesn't happen too often, but it could actually happen. So I'm going to start by inviting somebody I know. And so I have a few people that I know. Like, I love Fake Guy. He's a great guy. So I'm going to look for Fake Guy, found Fake Guy, and I'm going to say, okay, great. I want Fake Guy. I've invited Fake Guy. When I'm done and I click submit, fake guy is going to get sent an email saying, hey, Screen Demo invited you to join his group. And fake guy can click on the links in there, go into the housing portal, he'll run in this screen, and he'll be able to elect to join the group or decline the group. And now I'm going to try to invite someone else, but I want to double check something on this person first. Not that you'd be able to do this, but I can do this because I'm in charge. I have the power.
The power's in your hands.
I just want to make sure that something is set the way I need it to be set so that, okay, I'm going to mark that no.
And,
so I'm going to invite somebody. Go ahead.
I was just going to, if you were working on something on the back end, I was going to answer a question from Jennifer saying, say there are only 2 people who want to live together. Could they pick an apartment or suite for 4 people and then have 2 random people pick the other slots later? Yes, that's how it would work. Actually, you would choose a room and then those beds would still be available, the 2 remaining beds, and other people would be able to take those beds when they participate in room selection. Another question is asking if you have to participate in a roommate group. Nope, you don't have to. This is just for people that would like to live with another student that's coming in.
And I would say that 96% of students don't actually participate in a group, if not more. Mm-hmm. It's a fairly small percentage that actually form groups and actually get assigned as part of a group. That percentage is growing, but it's not a significant number yet, to my knowledge. So I'm going to try to invite screen test here. Found screen test. I get this message. What's going on? The person you're attempting to add does not have an allowable application type, or their application is not ready for assignment. So that could mean a bunch of different things. They have an application that's either an ACE or a student housing application, but it's not complete. They haven't done the 3 required steps: apply, pay the fee, and submit their immunizations and have it approved. Or they've got the wrong application. Maybe they have a summer, fall, spring SSS application. That's not included in here because they do have to live together. And so there's no point in having somebody who has a different application period trying to live with them. And then finally, they just don't have one. Maybe they have a Greek application because they're living in Greek Village. That's a possibility as well. But in this particular case, what I had done is I had marked their immunizations not clear. So if you run into that problem, you can call up your friend's screen test and say, hey, I wasn't able to add you. What's going on? Screen test can then go into the portal, check their housing, figure out what's missing, and take care of it. And so I kind of just did that virtually with screen test. Screen test got their immunizations straightened out. They called up housing and said, look, I just submitted it. Do you see it? Okay, we do see that, and we can update you right now. And so I'm going to search again for screen test. I'm going to submit, and I was able to add screen test. How about that? Screen test got it taken care of. And now I can actually go ahead and say, great. I'm done. It's submitted. Emails are flying out the door right now, or virtually out the door. And I've now got a roommate group of myself and 2 others.
And you all have received an email at this point stating that your roommate
Right.
group is successful. Okay.
And so what I would have to do now is log in as fake guy or log in as screen test and actually accept the invite. And so I'm going to do that while we answer a few more questions.
Okay. So while we're going in and taking a look at that, one question or one note that I did get is that we're getting a lot of questions about the admissions deposit being applied to the housing application fee and how that works. I don't have a specific question for it, but do you have just a little information that you can provide on that, Dave?
Sure. So the admissions deposit sits in your account as a credit. When you pay it, it just sits there as a $200 credit. And as things get charged to your account, it starts to eat away at that credit. That's basically how it works as it stands today. And so that's kind of why I cautioned you earlier that let's say you apply today, you already have your credit sitting in your account because you paid it 4 days ago. You apply today, tomorrow morning, bright and early, I charge you an app fee because you applied today. It gets put on the next business day, and at 10 o'clock in the morning, it gets uploaded into your Oasis account. By later on that afternoon, $50 of that credit is now gone, and it just paid your housing application fee. And so you may log in and say, I can't see a fee that's owed. That's because it's already been paid. Doesn't mean you can't throw another $50 in there to bring your $200 credit back up to its total credit. But it does mean that it is sitting there ready to be, it does mean that your application has been paid. So here, I just wanted to quickly show this. I'm in the page for Fake Guy. And you can always, and so here, Fake Guy has a decision to make. Do I want to join the group or not join the group? I kind of like screen demo. I'm okay with screen test. You know what? I'll join the group. So Fake Guy is now a member. And so screen test is going to go through the same process as well. Okay, any more questions while I get screen tests all figured out?
Yeah, so Ariana's asking, do we have to pay the housing fee for every year that we apply for housing? So that would be by term. So if you're applying for the summer term, that would be a housing fee, and then you would pay a separate $50 housing application fee for the fall spring, correct? 22, 23?
Yes, you'd pay for each application. Now, if you submit multiple applications for the same period of time, then ideally, we will not charge you a second fee. So let's say you submit a Summer A application. You're a continuing student, and you submit the Summer A application, and you realize, oh, wait, I have classes in B term too for the summer. So you cancel your Summer A, which you've already been charged a fee for, and you apply for Summer AB because you have classes in both terms. We should not be charging you a second application fee. If for some reason we do, just put in an appeal saying you've charged me too many application fees, and we'll remove one.
Within the same term, okay. And then Samantha, follow-up question to that is, if we get accepted for summer, do we have to apply for housing twice? So summer and fall spring are two different terms. So you will submit a summer housing application and a fall spring application. We also
with two exceptions.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
If you're accepted into the ACE program or the SSS program, we do offer a summer, fall, spring application because the ACE program encourages you strongly, because that's really part of the program, to live on campus for that 4-week period that they have during the summer. And it flows directly into the summer program, into the fall, spring term. And the SSS program requires housing. If you're in that program, you have to live on campus for summer, fall, and spring. And so we do offer a 3-term, essentially a 3-term application for those two programs. At this time, we don't offer it for a general student. It's something we're looking into. It's just so rare. Well, it's not uncommon for a student not to live on campus for the summer, but to live on campus for the fall and spring.
And that's one of the questions that we've gotten to, that can I do summer online classes, not live on campus for the summer and then come for the fall, which is for sure, you can definitely do that. There are a couple of questions that ask if first-time in college students are required to live on campus for their first year. They're not required. It's recommended, but it's not a requirement by the University of South Florida. And another question is asking if first-time in college students are guaranteed a spot on campus. And so
I wish I could.
Yeah, that is also that it's not guaranteed. That's why we really encourage students to get everything done early so that they can secure their spot on campus as soon as possible. So
and that's why we're here doing this tonight.
Yep. And Dave, are we ready to share your screen?
I am. Well,
Okay.
I'm ready to share it again, and now we can talk actually about room selection itself,
All right, let's
because
talk
that's
room
really what everybody
selection.
wants to know about, right?
There's a
Okay,
lot.
so okay, so when it's your turn, um, now the assign button will appear beginning on uh, the week before the first round of room selection begins. But when you click on it, if you have access to it, it'll take you to this option. Spring will take you nowhere. Summer right now will take you nowhere because I haven't set it up yet, but fall will take me to the here. Only I can get into here right now, so please don't try to log in and get to it because it's not going to work. But here I am. This is where we can talk about fall room selection, but not just room selection, also room change, self-service, and room swap request. And I'll talk more about that later. And so you're ready. It's your turn to select, and you click on the button. It says, okay, room selection. It's going to explain what do we have in that's available for room selection. We have special population, which is if you've been accepted to live in the 2022-23 Honors Living Learning Community. That's a separate application. That's part of the that you can complete after you submit a housing application. Or you've been accepted to the Student Support Services or SSS program, or you've been accepted and wish to live in the 22-23 ACE program. That's when you would select as a special population. Do we have other special populations on campus? You bet. We have, I think, 11 other LLCs, and we have student athletes, we have some other programs, but they don't go through room selection. And so in order to get into the spots that are reserved for those programs, the program will inform housing where these students need to be assigned in their room allocation. And so if you're one of those populations, you can go through room selection, but more than likely you'll be moved. But if I was going to do that, then I would click this link. If I'm not participating in that, then here's the information about general room selection. And so this page right here will be available prior to your turn. However, you won't be able to get much further after this.
So you can
and
read all this
we have it
information.
available. Exactly. We're going to make it readable, but you won't be able to go past it. If you try, you're going to get basically, you can't do this, but good try type message.
And another question that's sort of on this same page is if students will be able to see the current inventory of rooms that are available before they're able to go in to select their room.
I'll see if there's something I can create. I don't know.
And we've talked about that before, Dave, where when it was getting later in the year and we were having only a few availabilities pop up, where we'd have a page where we would be posting it daily, a daily update. We don't have that prepared for the beginning of room selection, but as you go through, we'll be able to show people how you can be very specific in what you're looking for and pick the bed itself. And then, of course, you'll want to have at least 3 options of what you're comfortable with, so that if your first one's not available, you can go back in and check on your second, third, fourth, fifth option that you're interested in.
Correct. And so I'll show you what is going to happen if you try to get in here and it's not your time. So let's see what happens when I click on this, because I don't think I qualify for any of those populations. Oh, it actually worked. How nice. That wasn't supposed to work, but let me go back. Okay, go back into assign. Maybe I am part of one of those populations. Oh yeah, I made myself an honor student. That was the problem. Let me not make myself an honor student. We do a lot of testing with Screen Demo.
Yes, Screen Demo is a very popular person. So while we're on this note, we're getting a lot of cancellation questions about what are the eligibility. So just as a reminder, we talked a little bit about this earlier, but while Dave goes through this, once you select your room, you are locked in for that term that you have applied for and selected the room. There's very specific things that allow students eligibility to get out of that agreement, but those are things like marriage. Dave, what are some other? And that one popped into my head.
We never encourage
Don't get married
marriage
just
or
to get out
having
of
a
your
child.
having a child.
Those are pretty. But you've been called up for military service.
Right.
This is Tampa Bay. We're going to let you out for that. Military is very important to all of us in the country, and so we understand that if you're called up for service during the period of time that you would have to be living on campus as part of this agreement, we would release you.
And so,
But
in
if
the
you're
past,
called up for service next summer, you can still finish out your time here. So
right.
that would be a different story.
So in the past, it was tiered by when you canceled and the fee that would
Correct.
be put on your account. That's no longer the case. You are responsible for your full charge of the term that you have selected a space for. So it wouldn't even be a cancellation fee. That charge would just be on your account. So
correct.
That's why, going back to what we were talking about earlier, while getting all of your steps before room selection is a really good idea, so that you're able to select the space that you're set on, have a better chance of doing that. You don't want to select a space unless you're 100% sure that you want to be attending or living on campus, because you can change your mind about attending the university and you wouldn't be locked into the agreement anymore to live on campus. But once you select your space and you are attending the university, you will be responsible for paying the term.
And I'll cover a little bit of that in here.
Okay.
As we go through it, because we've added some things in the selection process to make sure that that's very clear to our students.
Okay. Well, we'll
so
go back
here
to your screen then.
Okay. Tell me when you're there.
We're there.
All right. So here is what the page looks like. It says, "Oh, welcome, screen demo. Here's your application status. Yep, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to be assigned. Look, I'm hungry. Open access meal plan. Here are my roommate groups. I can check them if I'd like to. That should open up a pop-up, and it takes me right back to the roommate thing. And you can see, look, Fake Guy and Screen Test both agreed to be members of the group. What wonderful people. Now, I didn't talk about this, but all of your roommate group members need to identify as the same gender, or the same gender. So we do assignments at USF by gender identity, and so but if your sex is different, well, we may have to do some other steps, but we'll work with you on an individual basis to try and ensure that you're assigned properly with your gender identity. And so I checked my groups. My groups are good. Now, I don't have the start times populated right now, but when your start time is populated, it will show up here either in green if you're ready to start, or in red if you're jumping the gun. So if you're trying to get here too early, it's going to say your start time basically hasn't started yet, and it's going to be in big red letters. You can't participate for another day or another. Well, I'll tell you exactly what your start date and time are. So right now, imagine I have a nice green section there that says it's time for you to select. Again, it goes over the timeline and now how it works. You've already created your group, and now you're going to go in and do selection, and you're going to click the assign button. A lot of people say, I don't see where to start. I don't see where to start, because they don't go all the way down to the bottom of the page. If you haven't gone to the bottom of the page, you haven't read everything above it. So that's why we put the link at the bottom. Click assign, and this is really room selection at this point. And so, okay, this is the room selection screen. Continue. These are the terms I'm going to book myself for. If I have a roommate group, now I have two other people in my roommate group. What's going on? Why is Fake Guy not there? Why is it just Fake Guy? Where did Screen Test go? You know what Screen Test never did? Screen Test never did orientation.
Didn't register for orientation.
So now as it says here, you got to make a decision. Go on without screen test or stop here and wait for screen test to be ready.
This is
Now,
a
for
good example of
purposes,
real life decision making because this does happen and you
now
don't
it
want to
could
lose
be
your
that,
spot.
or maybe I didn't check my group before when I had that link. Maybe screen tests at the last minute decided to drop out of my group. Screen tests can do that. You can also check your email to see if screen tests did that, because they can't do that anonymously. They have to, if they drop out of your group, you will be notified by email, which is a big change from our previous roommate group process, where you could be suddenly unfriended and you wouldn't know, and then we're the ones who have to tell you you've been unfriended? No. So now it's very clear and open out. So not to delay this, I'm going to just assign myself and Fake Guy. If you do this and you still want screen tests to live with you, you're rolling the dice, because screen tests will have to try and go at their time. And if screen test is a new student and myself and Fake Guy are continuing students, we're selecting a week and a half before screen test might be able to. And who knows, maybe screen test really dragged their feet and didn't apply until like they were the 1100th person to apply. They're probably not going to get to select on the 10th. They're going to select more like the 11th to 12th, because we do small groups every half hour they get to start. And so that's why you got to make that decision and understand the ramifications of moving forward. If you move forward at this point, your other roommate group member may not be able to get into your room or your unit. So I'm going to continue. So we encourage you to check out the hall rates page. It was updated earlier today, yesterday. That's a question for you, Julia.
I'm sorry, say that again, Dave.
She's not listening. No.
I'm listening. I'm going through all these great questions as well, getting ready to ask you a bunch more.
The hall rates page, was it updated yesterday or today?
The hall rates page is up. We can see fall, spring, and summer rates are up there.
So you can all do a happy dance. Most of our rates did not change from this year. So only the rooms in the village went up in cost from this year to next year. And the increase in the village was fairly minor, I believe, if I recall from all the setup. Now, always look at the hall rates, because don't go and get the most expensive room on campus if you can't afford it. So you want to make sure that not only you can afford it, but also if you have a roommate group, that your roommates can afford it. So ideally, you've had a discussion of what are we looking for? What are our top priorities? Have a list with you when you go to start your room selection. And we're giving you a ton of tips here on how to help you be more successful with room selection. And so there are different ways to view what rooms are available. You can do a map view, or you can use a list view or a table view. You can click on any of these items that have an underline, and it'll open up a window to tell you more about that information about that room. Really critical, and we'll talk more about that at the next couple of lines. If you're in the map view, or if you're in the table view and you click on the room of the other the bed of the other person, you can see their preferences. So let's say you're going in alone, and we already confirmed earlier that you can select a room without being in a roommate group, but maybe there isn't an empty room that you can select from, so you're going to have to pick a room that's maybe partially filled, like this one, a red bed and a green bed. If you click on the red bed, you're going to be able to get information about how did they answer their 6 questions.
And Dave, on those 6 questions, a lot of people ask about this. So those are just questions that we have found to be very essential in successful roommate pairing. So obviously there are many other things that you'll want to know about your roommate and get to know. You'll have a roommate agreement form with them, where you'll sit down in the beginning of the semester and just go over some boundaries, some things that you both want
Right.
to put out there in order to have a successful living relationship. But those questions, how did you and your team identify those questions as being essential to the roommate process?
We've had them for a long time. We are actually looking into, um, are they essential anymore? And I have a new staff member right now, and they're like, why do we ask the smoking question? You can't smoke on campus. I'm
Right.
like,
A lot of
but
people
you
ask that.
can, when you go off campus and you smoke, I mean, uh, ideally, many of our students are first-year students at listening right now, and so they're not going out to a bar. But ask your parent or guardian, when you go out to a bar and it's smoky, and then you come home, you smell like
You're smoky.
smoke.
Yeah.
And so that's why we still ask the question, because smokers still smell like smoke, even though
Right.
they can't smoke on campus.
And Kevin, let's go back to the screen so we can see those questions as we talk about it. We have the smoking question, being neat, prefer if your room's cool or not, night person, and then the service animal question. But like
Right.
I said, if you're looking for specifics, this is not a full-on questionnaire to find your likes and dislikes and hobbies. That's not the purpose of this. If you're looking for somebody that may have more similarities with you, then you should join the USF Class of 2026 Facebook group, which I believe we've linked in the comment section from wherever you're watching, and then you can introduce yourself and maybe find some other students.
And that's what the roommate group process is all about.
Yep, that's true.
And my big thing is we're not eHarmony. We don't have
Right.
26.6 compatibility. I am not going to find you your perfect roommate. The only way that you can find a perfect roommate is to be open to having anybody be your roommate and not have it be your way or the highway. 'Cause that's critical to having a successful roommate pairing.
And we're going to talk a lot about that during Housing Live this year. So
Oh, yes, we will.
We won't jump into that tonight, but I did want to just point that out because we get a lot of questions about roommate compatibility, and if it's an option to find out more about a person before you decide to live with them. And there are ways to do that, but that's just external from inside the housing portal and through our process.
So another thing I want to bring up is, and for some reason I thought we had written it here, but maybe it's in another section. If you see here, you'll see there's only one bed in some of these rooms. Why is there only one bed? That's why we tell you to click on the room. There's only one bed because for you as a general student, you can only have access possibly to that bed if it was available. But there is another bed in that room. And so if you clicked on the room, you would find out that it is a double room. Double means there are two beds. Not a double bed, but there are two beds. Two twin-size beds.
And it's just reserved for a specific population like ACE,
right.
SSS.
Or it could be, we have lots of programs that say, you know what, we think we're going to have 100 people showing up. Can you reserve 100 beds for us? And we say, yep, we're going to do that, but we're not going to reserve it forever. And so we work with those populations. And so until those beds are released to the general population, it'll only show one bed there, but it is still a double. Very critical.
Right, because people will be thinking that they're choosing a single room, which has been a question, Dave, and as we move forward, that might be something that we can address here. But where the single options are going to be next year on campus, that is changing a bit. So we'll want to address that.
We will. And so you can also search by unit style, so apartment, suite, traditional, bedroom type, double, single, triple. We actually have 4 triples on campus. Bathroom style, private, semi-private, or down the hall. Kitchen and unit, yes or no. Room type or description. If you know you want a poplar double room, you can put in poplar. You can select poplar double room. So you've got those options. And so if you're not sure, reach out or keep watching our Housing Live and these sessions that we're providing, because I believe they are recorded. Are they not?
Yes. So we'll have these living on our Facebook page, YouTube page, so that people can go back and rewatch.
We've done a good job of reading all of that. and now we're going to continue, and now we're in the actual selection process. So we have our campus map here. We can look by a particular room type, but right now it says, for me, a male, I have 2,154 beds that I can choose from. And these are the complexes that they're in. And so I can also look at the map here. I'll scroll down a little bit more. Anywhere where there's a green box, there are beds that are available. So here, 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 none here. Greek housing, none there. And so it's like, boy, do I know the campus well enough? Have I already had a plan of where I want to select a room? And I could just click on it. So I'm going to go up to, I know I really want an apartment and I wanted to be in Holly. So I'm going to click on Holly. And here we are. Oh, there are beds. Of course, there are beds in all of Holly because I'm the first one selecting. And so I can pick which Holly apartment I want, or maybe I want Kosovo apartments. But I already said I wanted Holly, but I want to be near Starbucks. There's a Starbucks in Pinnacle Hall. There's the desk right here in case I lose my keys. There's a parking lot over here. I think I want Holly A. And oh, my page has expired. What's up with that? It's loading anyway. Hopefully. Maybe I took too long on this page and it wants to expire, but let's see what happens. Do I have to go all the way back in again?
Was it 5 minutes?
It shouldn't have happened, but it shouldn't. The counter shouldn't start until I actually select a bed. Yeah, something happened. So let me go back in.
And while you're doing that, just as a reminder, a question from Gia is, if me and a roommate want to live in a 2-bedroom apartment on campus, but one of the rooms is double occupancy, does that mean we need to find another roommate? As we went over, you can, as the roommate group, select a space for 2 people. And if there are additional beds that are in that space, then that could be taken from other students that are going to be participating in room selection. So you'll have those new roommates in your group as well. But there are traditional spaces that are just 2 beds in a room. There are some 2-bedroom apartments as well. So there are some options for 2 people to be in a room, but there's also suites and other things that will provide you the opportunity to meet some new people as well if you're open to having some new roommates.
Okay, so I wanted to look at Holly.
And Dave, another way to be eligible for a cancellation out of your agreement is study abroad, correct? If you participate in that program? Okay. That was a question.
But it needs to be an approved study abroad.
Approved with the university.
Yeah, and so I'm going to live on the 3rd floor. Anywhere there's a green box, I can select. So I have lots of green boxes here. 3rd floor. And this is, of course, the map view. And so anywhere that is in green, I can select. Lots of green beds. That one's got a red box in the apartment of green. That's because that's the RA room. I cannot select the RA room. If I want to learn more about the apartment, I could just click on the box. Oh, that didn't show me what I wanted. Here we go. I can click on here. And it tells me about the apartment or the room. I can click on the bed space. It tells me more about the bed space. Single bedroom, shared unit bathroom. It's Holly single, the unit number unspecified, and how much it costs. So there's nothing, we're not hiding anything there. If this is not what I want, I'm going to pick a different room. So I can go back because I didn't like the price of that. That was a little bit much. I also didn't like that I had 4 possible roommates. So maybe I can find something like the 2-bedroom. There are some 2-bedroom apartments in Holly.
And for someone looking for a single bedroom, to be by yourself in a room, that is going to be an apartment that they would be needing to look for, a single bedroom apartment for this upcoming summer and fall spring term. If you are a current student or were aware of our options for this current term, we had some singles available in Beta and Castor, which are traditional spaces, and then also Maple, which was a suite space. But we're moving towards going back to double occupancy in all of those spaces. Is that correct, Dave?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've decided, you know what? Maybe I just want to be in the Village. It's the latest and greatest. I want to be near Publix because Publix is right up here in the corner. Oh, I got to move over. Publix is actually up here. There will be a new map, but the Publix is right there. The new map will be added in another week.
And if you're interested in getting to know campus a little bit, if you don't have the opportunity to come visit, we do have campus maps that are linked to the front page of the website. If you scroll down on the bottom right, you can start looking at some great maps to get you familiar with what buildings are where, and especially for our residential buildings, we have them outlined on those maps, and you can see which ones are closest to Publix or closest to a building that you know you're going to be spending a lot of time in.
So I went to the Village so I could show you something very important. In the Village, there are different kinds of rooms. They have suite style and they have traditional rooms. And so I'm pointing this out. The suite style has the bath in the room. If you see a room without a room number and it says bath, that means it's a hallway bathroom. And that's an elevator, stairs, RAs are indicated. So I'm going to look at, here, I'm going to go into Horizon, and I've got all these rooms to choose from. Actually, I'm going to go to the other wing, just because I want to show you something specific. Oh, they're not available anyway. So there are actually a handful of true singles in the Village. I do want to caution you, that's the other location where you can find a single, but they do not last long. And in all honesty, we have most of them reserved for students who need it for medical or disability needs. And so we do say that if you're going to want a single, your best bet would be an apartment. That being said, I can look at the room, or we've done a lot with the map view. We could also do a table view, and we can see that it's traditional, no kitchen. We can click out of it, and then we can open up the room, and now we can see how much it costs. That's more in my price range, and so I can say this is what I want. We can see the information there about the room. I can click on the lock button. And this is where I can assign not only myself, but also Fake Guy. So if you're in an apartment and you find two spots that are open, more than likely I would suggest that you assign yourselves to two bedrooms that are next to each other. For instance, and I'm gonna just do one more little demonstration based on an apartment style that I know. And I'm going to go into MAG 105, MAG A 105. And, I wish I wanted to do it in a different way.
This time I noticed a lot of the rooms that you're hovering over say it's a male room. So if a female is in the housing portal looking at rooms, they're only going to be able to select female rooms. So it's not
correct.
The housing portal and the system will know what you have access to.
Right. And so I'm going to go back, and so here's an apartment. So I'm going to click on that, and this is where, well, they don't let you see that's weird. That is strange. They should have let me select right from there. That's probably what I did wrong. So I could select 105 for myself, but I got to think I also want to select 105B for my friend Fake Guy. So here I'm going to put myself, screen demo, into 105A and Fake Guy into 105B. and then scroll down to the bottom, hit continue. This is where we talk more. I have almost 4.5 minutes to decide. Now, this says it's a Magnolia single room. If it's a single room, that means there's one occupant in the bedroom. If it was a double room, even though you only saw one bed, if it said double, it would be 2 occupants, even though you only saw one bed. This is where we ask you to double check. You can also see information about how much it costs. You can see where you assign fake guy. And then we say, now we're going to ask you, please review the terms and conditions one more time, because this is going to commit you. And so you can click on this link. I think it's going to take you to last year's, but it's good enough for demonstration purposes here. And so I'm going to make this a little bit larger.
And
so
here's a question that might come up here. If the room that someone selects, or if the rooms we select are not available, so if someone is going through this process and realizes that the room that they had their heart set on is not available, can they get their money back if they decide to live off campus?
If they do not select a room, they can cancel. They would not get the $50 back.
Right, so it's the $50 application fee is non-refundable, but you're not locked in until you go past this point.
Right, and so I can read here and I can see the department can cancel me if I'm not enrolled, and I'm not enrolled and I didn't, or I'm not enrolled and I didn't show up for classes, or I'm just academically dismissed, or I'm dismissed because I did something wrong conduct-wise, or administrative dismissal. The department can remove me for those purposes, and here are the possible charges. If I want to cancel as a student, I can cancel at any time if I'm not assigned a space. Not a problem, because you have no bed. I'm not enrolled as a student. So if I graduate and I'm not continuing at USF in another program, if I get military orders and I have to leave, if I am going to withdraw from USF for medical, that's an approved medical withdrawal from the USF. If I just withdraw, I can also cancel because I'm not a student. If I participate in an academic program like a study abroad or an internship that requires me to reside outside of Hillsborough County, and that's important. It needs to be a required program. So here's a study abroad right there. So that would be like an internship. Let's say you've got an internship at down in Sarasota. It's not reasonable that you live on campus. You can if you want to, but you don't have to if you're expected that you need to live within 5 minutes of your internship, and your internship is down in Sarasota. Now, if they say you're only coming in once a week, you don't need to live anywhere near us, that would not qualify. It has to be a resident program that you need to, or a program that is requiring you to be living near that employment outside of Hillsborough County. Or if you're going to go to live in housing at St. Pete, you can also cancel. But that means you need to get that St. Pete housing.
And Dave, a lot of people are asking about the LLC room selection process. So most of the LLCs, if you apply for an LLC, you are assigned a space with the Living Learning community. A specific question about cancellations with the LLC, though, from Mel. If you're accepted to an LLC, are you automatically set as room selected and can no longer cancel the housing agreement, or can they still cancel up to some point if they are have a housing application on file?
I will answer that in just a second. I only have 35 more seconds to select.
Okay.
I'm going to select my room. I'm going to click submit. I've read it. I agree to it. I understand it. And I've submitted, and I'm done.
Beautiful.
And so now I can view my roommate and suite mates if I want to, just to double check. And here's how I would view more information about my roommates and suite mates. Preview. And I can get my email. Well, there's me. There's fake guy. I don't have any roommates yet, but I have all their preferences. So maybe I get those 2 randoms. This is how I can learn about who my randoms are, because that's apparently what they call them now. And I can also, if my friend or if my roommate has shared the ability to release their name and their email, I will get that information here.
And then you can connect with them on
And
social
then I can
media
reach
or
out and find
however.
out, what are you bringing? What am I bringing? I can see my room information, my mailing address. This is where you would receive mail and packages. Let's say you needed to give an address for insurance purposes. This is the address you would give for insurance purposes, because that's the physical location, but that's not where you get mail. If you send mail to this location, you will not get your mail. You need to send it to this location.
And we have a mail web page where you can pick your room itself of where you're living on campus, and it gives you your exact mailing address. So that's on the website.
So that's it. We're all assigned.
Wonderful. So just
Want me to keep sharing?
We can talk about living learning communities now. I think we are obviously a little bit over an hour. We're over time, but I do want to. We have a lot of questions about living learning communities specifically. So before we wrap tonight, I'd like to ask a couple of them to you, and then we have a few more of these Q&As planned. So if you have a question in the chat that hasn't been answered yet, we have one planned in 2 weeks from today, and then another 2 weeks after that. But of course, your team works really hard on answering all of the emails that come into housing@usf.edu, and from 8 to 5 every day, besides Saturday and Sunday, you're answering phone calls too. So there are other ways.
We actually answer phone calls now only from 9 to 4.
9 to 4, okay.
The phone hours have changed, but we are doing emails outside those times.
So there are other ways to get a hold of us. You don't have to wait till next time to get your questions answered. We'll also do our best to try to answer your questions in the comment section. But I know a lot of people here that may still be tuned in are interested in learning about living learning communities. So some main questions that we're getting: how do you apply for a living learning community? Are you locked into a room on behalf of your living learning community, or do you need to select a space? Can you have a roommate outside of a living learning community? And where they are, which I'll send any viewers that are asking specifics about where an LLC is located to our website, and to go to the Living Learning Community tab, and you can click on the individual LLCs to learn where they'll be located for next term. But as far as how to apply for one and how you get your room, we can go over that today before we wrap up.
Sure. So, a little water. I've been talking for a while.
I know, you've been talking for an hour and a half, so take your time.
So to apply for an LLC, first you need to complete your housing application, whether it's an ACE or a student housing application. You need to finish one of those first. Once those are done, then you can actually go to the LLC menu on the left side of the housing portal. Click on there. It's going to take you to the LLC applications page, and that's where you can apply for one of our, I believe we're up to 11 LLCs at this point. And so not every LLC will you be able to participate in, because some of them require you to be, let's say, in the Honors College or in another particular program, public health. If you're not a public health major, you can't apply. If you're not a nursing major or pre-nursing major, you cannot apply for the pre-nursing. If you're not a rising health, if you're not one of the health fields, I don't believe you can apply for the rising health LLC, though I'm not positive on that. If you're not an ROTC and you apply for ROTC, they're going to decline you. But I don't think there's anything that I can prevent you from doing the application. So you do want to look at the descriptions on that website that Julie is going to provide in the chat. But you'll complete that application. The application will be reviewed by the LLC advisor, and then they will notify you via email whether or not you've been accepted to the program.
And we had a date on how long that takes for them usually to get back to a student. I don't
right
know.
Now, they've done about 80 or so, about 80 applications have been submitted, and I want to say about 45 or 50 have already been decided on.
Okay.
Don't worry, we have plenty more spaces. So please, it's not a rush, but we do want to make sure you get it in early. so that you have the best opportunity to actually participate in the programs. Um,
And the deadline for that's June 15th. So you do have some time to decide.
yeah,
You can also go ahead and apply for housing, select a space that's not in an LLC, and then decide that you want to be in an LLC. We'll release that space that you were in and place you into an LLC space too. So you can change your mind, but it is a good idea to start thinking about it now. We're doing the research, applying, so you can be prepared.
right. And now, if you're in the honors program, there is a room selection process for honors.
Because there are so many honors students. And
Yeah,
are
there
they
are
required to live on campus in the
hundreds.
honors program? Because that's a question we got.
They are not.
Okay.
No. The only program that I know of right now that requires students to live on campus is the Student Success SSS program. So that's the only one, to my knowledge, at this moment that requires you to live on campus.
Okay.
So in the application itself, you do kind of waive your rights to rooms. Well, you waive your rights to not being moved into the room, into the LLC. That's one of the things that you say, yes, I agree that should I be admitted, I will be assigned to the LLC. So if you are not sure that you want to be assigned automatically, you have two choices. Don't apply for the LLC, or apply for the LLC and contact them and say, and you can ask them to please contact you before you get assigned.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Dave, because since this is a new change a little bit in the process, we do want to make sure that anybody that is on the fence about living on campus, you do communicate with the LLC that you're applying to, because we don't want you to be locked into a space that you're still thinking about. So that's a really good point and a great question from Mel asking about that.
And
So-
I want to be very reasonable. You're going to probably have that conversation with them. Follow it up with a written email. Because if you have that conversation and then you follow it up with a written email and they respond with, yes, I'm definitely going to do that, and they forget later on, part of your appeal will be to show me that email.
Right.
Or show my staff that email, the person or people that work on appeals. Because that might be the only way you get out of the assignment. So you need to have documentation if you had an arrangement like that.
And if you're in an LLC, can you have a roommate that's not in an LLC? We received that question a couple of times.
Generally, the answer is no, unless for some reason they did not fill. And so then there would be a possibility, because like you said, they have until the 15th to fill their beds. And if they don't fill their beds by the 15th of June, I'm not going to leave them empty until August. I'm going to start filling them pretty soon thereafter. As a matter of fact, I love to open those rooms that they're not going to use to room selection before the end of the room selection period, which is June 30th. And so the ideal is that we would have those beds available by at least the last week of June to offer out to other students, and that might open up the door for a non-LLC roommate. But ideally, if you're going to have a roommate and you're in an LLC, you need to get them to join the LLC as well.
Right. A follow-up question, and this might be a question specific to the living learning community or the person that they've been in contact with, but we were told that we were required to live on campus if accepted to the business honors. Is that true?
I could not answer that.
Right. So that would be a question specific to the advisor of the LLC program, or I think that we have an email address listed on our website for general living learning community questions that we can provide you in the comments here, that you can get the answer to that question.
Yes, definitely.
And then I had another LLC question here that was a good question about room types. So for some LLCs, there are traditional and suites that are offered in that LLC. If you have a specific preference, let's say you do want the traditional, is that something that you would communicate to the living learning community, asking that you would be put in that room type?
Actually, I don't think that's the case anymore.
I know last year there was one that I remember writing out suite and traditional, but I don't remember which one it was.
That was Rising Health.
Okay.
And this year, Rising Health is only traditional.
Right. Okay. So, but I guess in that instance, if there is a specific request you have about your living situation, or if you know, if you have a friend that's also going to be in the living learning community, those are all the rooms assignment questions and requests should all go to the living learning community
Yes.
person, because that's the person that's making these decisions, except for honors where they're going through our system, which would mean they could do a roommate group and that sort of thing. Is that correct? If it's other honor students?
Correct. They could
Okay.
do a roommate group with honor students. Something else that we didn't talk about was disability, ADA requests, medical requests. You'll want to do those sooner rather than later, so that we can try to satisfy that need prior to room selection. Because, you may need a single room, so maybe we put you in an apartment single right away. Now, just because you feel you need a single room does not mean that you will be given a single room. We need to look at documentation, and if we don't understand it, we go to our friends in student health or disability support services, and they help us understand your documentation. And then a decision is made by that.
Where where in the housing portal do students submit this information?
It's under the request section of the housing portal.
Okay.
It'll say ADA medical 504, or I think it's just ADA medical accommodation request.
Okay. Great.
And I know that we actually have a number of students that have already requested accommodations. Please note that we are a little bit short-staffed at the moment, working on that. But we're also short-staffed for students, so if you're a student that's interested in a job, make sure you check out the housing offerings in careers over the summer. Mm-hmm. Don't wait till you get here. Contact us over the summer. Put in put in a resume, and you can have a job before you even get here.
That's true.
But just be understanding that you won't get a response right away. We try to get to all the responses in a timely fashion, and be sure that you're looking at your USF email account, because if we need documentation or additional documentation, we're going to contact you via your USF email account.
Right.
So if you're not watching that yet, make sure you're adding that to your phone. If USF is the place you want to be, then you want to make sure you're in the know and you're using your USF email account now, not when you get here.
Absolutely. A lot of important information that comes to that email. So, Dave, we went over a lot tonight. We could go over even more, but I want to be respectful of your time and the fact that we're going to be also doing these multiple
Got a little
times.
dark in here after.
I know.
The sun was up kind of when I started this session.
But like I said before, if you did ask a question in the chat and we didn't get to it, we are taking questions all week long in our email, housing@usf.edu, and you can call us as well. And that is 813-974-0001, right?
Correct.
Okay. And I'll be reading that too when we sign off here. But we will do our best to be going through all these questions too and providing an answer. But Dave, thank you so much for your time tonight. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure everyone joining us appreciates it as well.
And if people need more information, tune back in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, we'll be here. All right, thank you, Dave. And
Pleasure.
Thanks again to Dave for taking the time to chat with us and answering all of our questions. So as a room selection timeline recap, round 1 of room selection for continuing USF students is from Monday, February 21st to Friday, February 25th. Round 2 of room selection for incoming USF students is from Thursday, March 10th to Sunday, March 13th. And the final round 3 of room selection, is for all USF students and opens from March 14th to June 30th. Be sure to complete all of your steps to live on campus as soon as possible so you're ready for room selection. And please email us at housing@usf.edu or call us at 813-974-0001 if you have any additional questions. Have a great night, everyone, and go Bulls!